You know, I thought I had remastered all of the original best teams. In fact, I was actually pretty confident with Kalos through Paldea. But then I rewatched the best team for Kalos, and remembered me and my buddy Dan created this team nearly 7 years ago. Can you believe that? Not gonna lie, this was definitely one of the better original best teams. The team has power on it, that's for sure, and the team works great. But X and Y has quite the roster of powerful mons available to use, including some mega evolutions that quite frankly I believe I slept on when making the original best team. Not just the megas, but I felt like the team was just missing a few things, like some other typings for instance. I just felt like I could go through, switch some options up, and give it a tune-up, as I'm definitely more knowledgeable now than I was 7 years ago. So today, we're gonna go back to Kalos after many years. It's cool to go back to Kalos. It's a region I rarely cover on my channel, and it makes me miss X and Y, especially due to Legends ZA coming out next year. Other than that, I had a load of fun making this team, and I'm pretty proud with how it came out. So something that definitely has not changed with this Kalos best team is definitely the starter choice being Greninja. Even with Torrent, Greninja is still pretty goated this gen. With its dual typing of water and dark, alongside its stats and move pool, Greninja, in my opinion, performs the best across Kalos. You have a plethora of tools to pick from its kit, as it can perform physically or specially. Off topic real quick though, Greninja has actually aged alright. The fact it can still be considered one of the strongest starter Pokemon today, even after 10 years since its debut, is pretty cool. Not to mention, it's still one of the most iconic Pokemon in the series. Thank you, Ash. Plus, its shiny is still one of the cleanest designs I have ever seen on a Pokemon. It's not particularly relevant to the topic, but Greninja is one of the coolest Pokemon to ever exist. A Ninja Frog is such a sick concept. Anywho, without delving off into a different tangent again, let's get on with the moveset. Surf, Night Slash Dark Pulse, Ice Beam, and Grass Knot. The same one we used originally. Surf is an excellent stab option for it, and it can be found as an HM on the right side of Shalor City. For Dark Stab, we got two options. If you want an easier move to get, Night Slash is your go-to, being available via the Mover Learner. Dark Pulse can be found, but it's pretty late game, being obtainable as a TM on Route 16 after getting Waterfall. Ice Beam is of course any water Pokemon's go-to coverage, and that can be obtained after defeating Wulfric. And lastly, Grass Knot can be won after beating Ramos. It's simple, but a solid moveset for Greninja. P.S. I will leave you guys a video in the description for Heartscales, because you know the drill with move relearning. The move relearner can also be found in Dendemil Town. I don't know how much of you guys are gonna like this one, but I have a mon here that a lot of people on this channel get tired of seeing. Hey Guardy. Okay, so hear me out. Stats wise, it's good for an in-game run. Stab Fairy is great, and its coverage pull is useful. Kadabra is the secondary option, and in my opinion, you can't really go wrong with either choice. What gives Kadabra the slight edge over Guardy is because the Evo line is stuck with Confusion a pretty good chunk of the time. Kadabra gets Psybeam at level 28, and completely bodies Corina, plus it has better speed. Later game though, Gardevoir and Kadabra are pretty on par with each other. Guardy does get Psychic a bit faster than Kadabra though, so they both have their edges over each other. I chose Guardy mainly because it gets Thunderbolt for coverage. But like I said, Kadabra is just as good, if not in some aspects better. So it's up to you if you're sick and tired of seeing Guardy. I totally get it. Location-wise, they're both around the same time, being really early to pick up. Ralts being on Route 4, and Abra being on Route 5. So, for its Psychic Stab, like I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be stuck with Confusion for a good chunk of the game. However, it does get Psychic once it hits level 40. For Fairy Stab, you have the option of either Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam is one after beating Valerie, or you can give it Moonblast via Move Relearner, though you will have to wait a tad later for that. Thunderbolt can be earned after defeating Clement, and Shadow Ball can be found in Terminus Cave. Whether or not this is post-game or not, I have no idea, so correct me if I am wrong in the comments in regards to Shadow Ball. Kadabra's moveset is the same thing except with Psybeam, and you would sub out Thunderbolt with Charge Beam. The TM for Charge Beam can be found on Route 13. But yeah, Neither option is wrong. Choose whichever of these psychic types, and you will not be disappointed. Next up, we choose our second starter Pokemon. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here, because all of them bring some value to the table. Last time, we chose Mega Venusaur. This time, however, we changed that, with Megazard X and Y. Megasaur definitely is an excellent choice, but the destructive power Zard X and Y bring is diabolical. In Pokemon Y, you get Zard Y. In Pokemon X, you get Zard X. Go figure. Either one of these dragon behemoths will not fail you. Heck, Charizard on its own, even without its Mega, is still in my opinion one of the best flyers to choose from. And who's to say you have to Mega Evolve it in every single battle you have it in? Last time, we chose Crobat as our flyer. But Charizard just has more options available to use move pool wise, and duh, it gets 2 badass Megas. Zard Y does have Drought, and yeah, it can soften up Greninja's Water Stab, but odds are, Zard Y can take care of the battle all by itself, so it doesn't even matter. Flamethrower in the sun is just pure destruction, especially for the cakewalk known as Kalos. Zard X is more on the physical front, with Tough Claws as its ability. However, that doesn't mean you can't run it mixed. Now, let's move on to the movesets. I'll be covering 2 movesets actually, one for Zard Y and one for Zard X respectively. Zard Y's moveset is legit just a standard competitive one, aside from one move. Air Slash, Fly, Flamethrower, and Solar Beam. Air Slash, you can move relearn. Fly, you get via plot progression in Comarine City. And of course, it's useful to have because screw walking. Flamethrower, you can get as a TM or via level up. I prefer TM. You can find the TM for it in the Anastar Pokemon Center from an NPC between 11 AM and 5 PM, and Solar Beam can be found on Route 21, and will complement its Drought ability very well. Zard X's moveset consists of Dragon Claw, Fire Fang / Flare Blitz, Earthquake, and Strength. This moveset goes well with Zard X's ability Tough Claws. Earthquake will not receive a boost from it, but not like that matters anyway. Dragon Claw can be move relearned. When it comes to Flare Blitz over Fire Fang, I do prefer Fire Fang because there is no recoil, and it can be learned at level 28. Flare Blitz can be move relearned though, if that's up your alley. Earthquake is an excellent go-to coverage move for it, and the TM for that can be found on Route 22. Lastly, Strength can be given to you by Grant in Solar City. I would have taught it Steel Wing, but it isn't available until the post-game, so I figured Strength could be useful on it. Starting the second half of the team, I was originally going to keep Heliolisk, and I will stand by my previous choice and say it was a pretty good pick. But after thinking about it and realizing Guardy can just use Thunderbolt, I decided on using a pretty frequent best team member here on the channel, being Roserade. Roselia can be found at Route 7, so it's pretty early. The Shiny Stone can also be found at a decent time, being right before Comarine City. Roserade has a great special attack stat of 125 and a decent speed of 90, helping to outspeed a lot of things across this French region. What I love about Roserade as well is that its poison typing is actually useful because of the fairy type being introduced. Roserade can outright knock out 2 out of 3 members of Valerie's team. Gotta love typing usefulness. What's also neat about Roserade is that it has access to Venoshock really early in the game, so you have a base 65 power attack right around the time you get Roselia. Its level up pool is also pretty nice, getting Giga Drain at level 25. With that, let's hop into its moveset now. Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Shadow Ball, and Dazzling Gleam are the moves Roserade is going with. Giga Drain is in my opinion its best stab option, being able to get HP back as well. Sludge Bomb is its best poison option, and that can be obtained as a TM on Route 19. Prior to that though, like I mentioned, Venoshock can be found on Route 7 right below the Parfum Palace, and this will be the Roserade line's main stab for quite a bit. If it is able to land a poison off as well, it will do double damage. So in some cases, it could be better than Sludge Bomb, but I'll leave that up to you. The last 2 moves are going to be its coverage, being Shadow Ball and Dazzling Gleam. Both of these I covered previously. But yeah, the Roserade line's matchup versus a chunk of the important battles is pretty solid. Grant, Ramos, Valerie, Seabold, etc. I've used Roserade before too, and it did wonders for my Kalos run. So I feel like I made a pretty big mistake by not adding this monstrosity to the original best team for Kalos. Not to mention, this team also didn't consist of any fighting types the last time either. It's pretty obvious what Pokemon I am talking about. I don't think I need to explain much here. These mega stats speak for themselves, and you get it right when you get your third batch. It's just stupid how early you get it. Base Lucario is also pretty decent. It's a mixed attacker, so you can pretty much run whatever you want in its kit. Just throw Mega Lucario in anywhere, press a button, and I guarantee it'll do something. Now, a great secondary option is Hawlucha. You can pick it up on Route 10, its stats are pretty good, you get acrobatics and flying press, and it's just a good time. If you don't want to use Mega Broken Lucario, I would say Hawlucha is the best option for you. Anywho, Lucario's moveset. Lucario's steel move pool is very shallow. I kid you not, its best option is Metal Claw for the entire game. Flash Cannon cannot be obtained until the post game, so that's the best steel stab it has. Game Freak done goofed on this one, and in the gen where it's mega debuted. Regardless, Steel Stab isn't really needed, because it still gets Aura Sphere and the other coverage options it has available to it. And I would say you can pretty much run whatever you want on Lucario. To be honest, it doesn't really matter, because it's still going to do very well, specially or physically. And lastly, is a mod that is making its return from the original Kalos best team, Garchomp. Garchomp arguably was the last best team's MVP, and you can get it at a great point in the game. You can get Gible on Route 13 right before facing off against Clement. Talk about perfect timing. So you will have Gabite by the time you get to him. Garchomp's stats speak for itself. Stab Earthquake is goated, being able to shred through the majority of the game. You also get early Bulldoze with Gabite, and you get Dragon Claw at level 33. One thing I need to acknowledge as well is that in the OG best team for Kalos, I mentioned you can get the Garchomp bite. I was wrong. It is a post-game Megastone. Regular Garchomp is better despite that, so it's not like it matters much anyway. For Garchomp's set, it's pretty strong and simple. Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, and Shadow Claw. Before Earthquake, like I said, Garchomp has access to Bulldoze, which it'll have right off the bat when facing off against Clement, and Gabite will be using that until it gets Earthquake. Bulldoze is available at a very early point in the game. It can be bought at the Southern Lumio City Pokemon Center right when you get to Lumio City. Earthquake can be found later on at Route 22. Dragon Claw, I've already talked about. Rock Slide can be found in Coroway Town after getting Waterfall. I'm not sure if Brick Break is post-game, so if it isn't, use that. It can be found in Terminus Cave. Lastly, Shadow Claw can be found in the Glittering Cave. Anywho, that was the new best team for Kalos Remastered. I'm feeling pretty confident in the power this team has. Broken Megas, a great Pseudo, and one of the best starters of all time. This kind of lineup in games like X and Y is pretty overkill. What do you guys think though? Do you like this team more than the original, or do you like the original more? Realistically, both teams are still extremely powerful in their own right, so you can still do incredibly well with either choice. The truth of the matter is though, it's X and Y. You don't really need a lot to beat these games.